So we're going to distinguish between 7 different types of cost that we can measure for the firm in the short run. First is fixed cost. Fixed cost is the sum of the cost the firm must pay in the short run, even if its output is zero. It is the cost the firm pays for its inputs that are fixed in the short run. For example, rent a firm is paying for a building would be fixed for 9 months if the lease does not expire for another 9 months, and breaking the lease is more expensive than fulfilling the terms. Another example is the expense involved with owning large equipment. A firm might be able to recoup the market value of the equipment only by keeping the equipment on the market for months or years. The cost of owning the equipment is fixed for that time period. Some books call this total fixed cost. Here are a couple of key points. First, fixed cost will be greater than zero in the short run, even when quantity is zero. Again, fixed costs are costs the firm must pay even if output is zero. And second, fixed cost does not change as output increases. The second cost is variable cost. Variable cost is the sum of the costs the firm can eliminate when it reduces its output to zero. It is the cost the firm pays for its variable inputs. For example, payments for labor and electricity would be variable cost if the firm increases employment and how much electricity it uses as it expands production. Some books call this total variable cost. Since the firm can eliminate variable cost when output goes to zero, and we're going to assume the firm will always produce as cheaply as possible, variable cost will equal zero when output is zero. Since the firm eliminates all unnecessary expenses, it also means that variable cost must increase as quantity increases. Total cost is the sum of the fixed and variable cost. Total cost will equal zero when output is equal to zero. Total cost will equal fixed cost when output is equal to zero, and total cost increases as Q increases because variable cost increases. You can divide each of these costs by Q to get an average. Average fixed cost is fixed cost divided by Q. Average variable cost is variable cost divided by Q. And average total cost is total cost divided by Q. Each of these measure how much of the cost the firm is paying for each of the unit the firm is producing. Marginal cost is the change in total cost divided by change in output when input prices and technology are constant. It measures the extra cost the firm incurs when it increases output by 1. Algebra can be your friend. We know that total cost equals variable cost plus fixed cost. This means or implies that variable cost will be the difference between total cost and fixed cost, and that fixed cost will be the difference between total cost and variable cost. We know that average fixed cost is fixed cost divided by Q. This implies that fixed cost will be the product of average fixed cost and output. In similar fashion, we know variable cost will be average variable cost times output, and we know that total cost will be average total cost times output. We know total cost is the sum of variable and fixed. This has several important implications. When we divide both sides of that equation by Q, we'll get average total cost is the sum of average variable cost and average fixed cost. And from there we can take the difference. Average variable cost is the difference between average total cost and average fixed cost. Average fixed cost is the difference between average total cost and average variable cost. And finally, marginal cost is the change in total cost over change in Q, which is equivalent to the change in variable cost over change in Q. There has to be a divide sign there, not an equal sign. This means that the change in total cost will equal marginal cost times the change in output, and the change in variable cost will equal marginal cost times the change in output. I got lopped off at the bottom of the screen, looks like. Let's walk through an example. This table shows me, has columns for when Q is equal to 3 and when Q is equal to 4. It tells me that fixed cost is 120 when Q is 3 and variable cost is 360 when Q is equal to 3. It also tells me that average total cost is 135 when Q is equal to 4. We have enough information to fill in every cell in that table except for the marginal cost when Q is 3. Let's start with total cost. Total cost is simple. Total cost is the sum of fixed cost and variable cost. So we take 120 and we add that to 360 and we're going to get 480. Average fixed cost is fixed cost over Q. So we're going to take 120 and divide by 3, and that'll give me 40. Average variable cost is variable cost over Q. So we're going to take 360 over 3, and that'll be 120. And average total cost is total cost over Q. That'll be 480 over 3, which is 160. Well, to fill in the second row, we're going to use the average total cost is 135. Total cost is fixed cost plus variable cost. It's also average total cost times Q. So 135 times 4 is going to give me a total cost of $540. I know fixed cost doesn't change, so if fixed cost is 120 when output is 3, it'll also be 120 when output is 4. Variable cost must be total cost minus fixed cost. So if I subtract 120 from 540, I'll get the variable cost of $420. Average fixed cost is going to be 120 divided by 4 now, which is equal to 30. Average variable cost is going to be 420 divided by 4, which is 105. And now I can find marginal cost. Marginal cost is the change in total cost over change in Q, which is the same as change in variable cost over change in Q. We'll do total cost. Total cost went from 480 to 540. That's an increase of $60. Output went up from 3 to 4. That's an increase of 1. So marginal cost is $60. The fourth, or producing the fourth unit of output, increased total cost by $60.